My fellow Americans, major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
There's a total of 147,000 American troops throughout Iraq, 42,000 in Baghdad alone. That's 50% more than the entire U.S. force it took to fight and win the war. But critics claim it's still not enough troops to win the peace.
While the administration had thought about getting rid of Saddam, there had been very little thinking about what to do after he was removed.
7 weeks after the war, the U.S. military has still not been able to restore law and order to many areas of war-torn Iraq.
There was a sense that all we had to do was take a hammer and smash the totalitarian state, and out of that, democracy would suddenly bloom out of the soil. That did not happen.
There really wasn't much of a plan for Phase 4. I remember asking, in fact, after we take down Baghdad, what happens? And the answer was, you just get us to Baghdad, Dave, and we'll take it from there.
Like a presidential candidate on an early primary swing, the new American administrator of Iraq posed with local officials.
Paul Bremer was an experienced Foreign Service officer, tough-minded, capable, but some of the early decisions were, to me, predictably bad.
He's made the tough and risky decision to fire all senior members of Saddam's Ba'ath Party, which could further paralyze the infrastructure here.
For the ordinary Iraqi, if you weren't a member of the Ba'ath Party, there was no way really to have not just a comfortable life, almost any kind of life, because Ba'ath Party membership made it possible for you to be an elementary school teacher, to give you a civil service job, to be in the military. And when all that was taken away, people who had previously been running the country were now excluded from it.
At least Saddam Hussein fed us, says this man, an Iraqi soldier who hasn't been paid for 3 months.
There is no job, there is no money, there is no food. What's the problem?
Within Iraq, there are very bitter tensions between the Shia and the Sunni that had been contained under a strong dictator, but once that dictator is gone, the infighting begins.
The Sunnis had been on top under Saddam. Suddenly, we invade, we get rid of Saddam, and now they're on the bottom. So you've got millions and millions of pissed off Sunnis, some of whom are going to join the insurgency.
We are not followers of Saddam Hussein, says this man. We are sons of Iraq and reject the American occupation of our country.
When you end up fighting insurgents among the population, not wearing uniforms, with improvised explosive devices, ambushes, guerrilla tactics, that's a very, very different task.
The militant cells each have about 8 to 10 core members. They're hard to catch because they often hire poor villagers to pull the triggers.
The United States military was kind of caught pretty flat-footed by this insurgency that was gathering steam, and the policymakers wouldn't admit that it was an insurgency.
Are we into quicksand? Is this going to be another quagmire?
Well, time will tell.
It is very early in the morning, but there is very interesting news afoot. The rumors are getting very strong. The reports are becoming much more numerous that Saddam Hussein is in custody, that Saddam Hussein has been captured.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
There was a quick celebration in the streets of many Iraqi cities and certainly in the administrative offices of the Bush administration and the American government. This is a real victory for U.S. forces in Iraq and for President Bush.
You will not have to fear the rule of Saddam Hussein ever again. All Iraqis who take the side of freedom have taken the winning side.
It was a disoriented and bewildered Saddam Hussein who was captured near Tikrit, his hometown. He was hauled out of a hole like a dazed animal.
The capture of Saddam Hussein, of course, was something that we saw as victory. But from the perspective of Sunnis, he had been their leader, and for many of them, their protector.
While many in the Arab world may have been quietly relieved at Saddam's capture,
For others, the image of an Arab champion sheepishly submitting to a humiliating medical exam was taken as an insult to Arab pride.
We look at it as triumph, but when they look at it on Al Jazeera, it has a totally different meaning. It's a meaning of a humiliation, and that definitely feed into the idea of radicalization.
Last month, the U.S. Army announced 17 soldiers in Iraq, including a brigadier general, had been removed from duty after charges of mistreating Iraqi prisoners. But the details of what happened have been kept secret until now.
The photographs were shot at the Abu Ghraib prison, where Saddam Hussein subjected prisoners to hideous torture.
These pictures are reprehensible, abhorrent. You know, this really reminds me of what Saddam used to do.
The myth is that America is the great liberating force and democratic, and that our soldiers are more disciplined than anybody else's soldiers. And there's a lot of truth to that myth, but of course it's partly a myth. Human nature being what it is, there are excesses and there are abuses.
They are saying, we came here to free you, but in order to do that, we will torture you. What democracy he is talking about?
We handed Islamists a recruiting video. You couldn't have had a better way of encouraging young Iraqis to join the jihad against the United States.